Look at me on here at exactly 11 o'clock. That's like unheard of. It's unprecedented. It's out of control. What do you know? Here I am. Exactly 11 o'clock. Okay, I'm standing, so I'm going to try not to be too back and forth. We'll see how that goes. I'll just do my best to stay, nice and grounded, right? Stay nice and grounded. Let's see how that goes. Whatever grounded, even though grounded doesn't necessarily mean still for me. So, I'll try to stay still. We'll see. All right, friends. Welcome. My name is Dr. Shannon Coates. Please feel free to call me Shannon. I get lots of emails from folks who are like, Dr. Coates, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we're colleagues. Please just call me Shannon. So please just call me Shannon. It's out there because I did it and also for other reasons, but really, truly, Shannon is good. I do live office hours like these. I go live on Instagram and Facebook semi-regularly. I also talk about topics that are of interest to me, but also that come from interactions with voice teachers, such as those of you who are watching today. And they are generally pedagogy related. Sometimes I'll get into some technique, like what are you hearing? How do you parse this out? Blah, blah, blah. Sometimes I'll get into that. Usually I'm talking pedagogy, so I'm talking about how to teach, what it means to be an educator, all of those kinds of things that we don't necessarily get in our training at all. My live office hours, all of the replays are available on my YouTube, so you can go over there and take a look. And also, the live office hours are based on, like I said, pedagogy topics of pedagogy. So what we're talking about today, we are talking about how we view our roles as educators. And this came up because this comes up a lot when I'm working with voice teachers. I work with voice teachers, the voice ped degree. We are almost a year long. I've had 2 cohorts come through now. I can just say, without any doubt, it is absolutely unique in the field. There is nothing else out there like it. Don't fool yourself, don't kid yourself. There's nothing else out there like it. Anyway, so if you're interested in doing some comprehensive whole education around your teaching, I get in touch, I'll send you the info. But this comes up in the voice ped degree, and it comes up I do voice ped consults with folks all the time. Also, I see lots of these kinds of questions on the socials, of course, in our voice teacher forums that relate back to this topic of how we view ourselves as educators. And the fact that for many of us, we got into this profession kind of feeling like it was a bit of a calling, right? So in a similar way to the way that we often think about being a performer or being a musician, we sort of think of it as a calling sometimes, this is it's such a noble thing, to be a teacher, to get into this teaching profession. So often we get into, I certainly did, there was the aspect of I could do this from my home while my kids were young, and then I could have an income. There was that aspect, of course, but lots of folks, we get into this profession with this kind of, whether we say it explicitly or understand this explicitly about the way we feel about the profession, or whether it's just sort of intuitive and it hasn't come to the fore in our thinking about the profession, we think of ourselves as being in this helping profession, right? We think of ourselves as helping people to be their best selves. We're helping people to be performers. We're helping them, we sort of have this around the calling, right? Around the profession, this calling. And we, again, because we have so little training around what it means to be an educator, often don't parse out what thinking about ourselves as being in the helping profession might actually impact our effectiveness as an educator. So I want to just say, as educators, of course we're helping people, but it's not a helping profession if we're doing it effectively. It is an empowering profession. Education should be empowering, right? It should not be me helping you. It should be me empowering you. Yeah? And I know, I'm talking a little bit of semantics here for sure, but if you are thinking the profession that you are in of being an educator as being a helper is going to negatively impact your effectiveness as an educator. Let me give you some examples of how this kind of plays out. I made some notes. Okay, we take this on as our we have these noble aspirations to be teachers. And we also then look around and figure out, okay, the way that I know that I'm good at helping singers, the way that I know is that they do well in these XYZ things. They do their exams. They get their auditions. They get to sing the songs they want to sing. They do well in their recitals. Their parents are happy, blah, blah, blah. That's the way that I know that I'm good at my job, which when I'm thinking about it is as a helper. So I know I'm good at my job as a helper when all of these external assessment factors are in place. So they win at Nats. They are singing on whatever XYZ stage. They put out an album. They, like I said, their parents are happy. They get the school play. They get in the choir, etc. They get the solo. All of those things are the assessment factors that we use to judge whether or not we are good at helping, right? Whether or not we're good at being good at our job, essentially. And we also then couch this in like, okay, well, we're helping them to be their best selves. We're helping them to be their best performers. We're preparing them for the real world. In academic institutions all over the world, what is the refrain? Well, I have to prepare them for the real world. I have to make sure that they're ready for the real world. I have to make sure that they're ready to be in this big, bad, nasty world. My job is to help you in all of these different ways. So how does this show up? In our teaching, when we are thinking that our job is to help someone become their best selves, is to help someone become their best performer, is to help someone do the best they can on XYZ recording, is to help someone win at the competition, is to help someone get the solo, blah, blah, blah. When we're thinking about all of that, how does that show up? Well, it means that we get really anxious and really frustrated when the singers don't do what we are telling them to do. Because we know, that they have to do XYZ thing in order to be successful at XYZ thing. And our role as helper means that if they are not doing the thing that I'm telling them to do, if they are not practicing in the way that I think they should be practicing, if they are not listening to the music I think they should be listening to, if they're not taking advantage of the opportunities that I have provided for them or that the institution has provided for them, if they are not showing up on time for XYZ thing, if they are not learning their music in the way I think they should be learning their music, if they are continually not able to grasp a technical concept, for example, all of these things we're like, okay, if only they would comply my help because I'm helping them, then they would get the outcome they're looking for, which is really the outcome I'm looking for, right? Because I need them to have specific outcomes and be successful in specific ways in order for me to know that I am a good helper. I'm a good teacher. I'm conflating helping, educating. And I'm conflating these external outcomes of their compliance with internal outcomes of agency, choice, options, actually preparing folks to be a human being, to exist in our world. These are two different things, right? It also looks like I can't tell so-and-so about their technical issues because if I try to tell them that they're not doing something right or they are not grasping a concept, if I try to tell them that will ruin them, right? That will hurt them really badly. And so I'm in this constant state of frustration because I can't help them. I can't do what I perceive to be my job. Constantly frustrated because I can't tell them to change something, because if I tell them, then they're going to be hurt, and then either I get really good at being the bad guy teacher and I just go like, well, that's fine, I'm just like a hard-nosed teacher, and so they should go to someone else who wants to just baby them then. I get really good at just sort of rationalizing that for myself as the teacher, right? Because I'm doing my job and I'm helping them. And if they can't take the criticism, or if they are too soft to be able to understand that I am helping them, if they can appreciate that I'm helping them, and also if they don't know that this is my job, this is literally what they're paying me for, then they can just go to someone else. We get really good at that, being that teacher, right? Who's like, well, I put my boundary up, I told them what to do. If they can't handle it, they should go to someone who is gonna baby them then. That's too bad for them. Yeah, we get really good at being that. Or we get really good at being frustrated, right? We get really comfortable, if you will, with being frustrated all the time because you're like, well, if I could tell them, if I could give them the feedback that they really needed, and if I could actually get them to do this thing, if I could actually say this thing without hurting them, then they would be able to do a better job at XYZ thing, and then I would be in a better place. But I get good at just being like, well, I guess this is the way lessons have to be for them. I guess I am just this person who plays the piano for them, right? We resign ourselves to being the person who just plays the piano for them. We resign ourselves to that, being that teacher. Because our concept of what it means to be an educator is all wrapped up in I'm helping them. I'm helping them to be successful. I'm helping them to achieve this objective. I'm helping them to sing better. I'm helping them to be a better performer. I'm helping them to be able to exist in the real world. I'm helping them to be able to do the thing they tell me they want to do. I'm helping them. It's all wrapped up in this lens of I'm their helper. I'm not talking about this today because I'm mad at people for viewing things in this way or teaching in this way. I am so sad because teachers come into the forums. I work with teachers. We're in the voice ped degree. We're in consults. I'm talking to teachers all the time who are so frustrated because they feel like they can't do their job. That's why I'm talking about this today. I'm not talking about it because I'm like, oh, you're so bad at your job. You should know better at all. I'm talking about it because I have been this teacher as well, where I'm like, if only they would do what I would tell them to do, they would be good. They would have, well, they failed their exam. Yeah, that's because they didn't practice. They didn't do anything I told them to do. Well, they sounded crappy on XYZ thing. That's because they didn't do what I told them to do. Or that's because I let them do something against my better judgment. They sang XYZ thing. I told them it was too hard for them and they wouldn't let me modify it at all. And so then they sang it and of course it went badly, right? So we're teaching in this mire of if only they would do what I told them to do. And also start to build this wall of well, I have to put up this boundary because my experience tells me that they're going to fail if they don't do what I told them to do. So they have to put up this boundary because I'm helping them. How can we change this lens? First of all, let's talk sort of upper thought kind of thing, and then we'll talk about a couple of practical things, yeah? So first of all, what's the other side of helping? What's empowering? When I change my lens, or when I start to deconstruct this lens of I'm in a helping profession, and I start to experiment, play, explore what it means to be in an empowering profession, education as empowerment versus education as me helping you. I'll just say too, I very rarely use the word helping, like I'm helping this singer or I'm helping this teacher or I'm helping. Word has a grossness in me right now. So the word that I use is support. You very rarely see me talking about helping a singer or helping a student or helping a teacher or whatever. I am consistently, for the most part, say, I'm supporting the singer as they do this thing. I'm supporting the singer as they blah, blah, blah. I'm supporting, right? To me, there's just a different understanding behind those words. Okay. What does this look like? If I am considering or thinking about being an educator from the lens of I am empowering singers versus I am helping them, that means that I start to move away from if only they would do what I told them to do, and I start to move into here are the choices and you get to decide. So rather than saying, you can't sing this song because it is too hard for you, or the subject matter's too blah, 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 or whatever, or saying, okay, fine, sing it. Okay, I'll help you to sing it as best you can, even though I know it's not good for you, right? Like those two options. We either get the boundary, and we say, nope, you can't do that, or we get permissive, if you will. We kind of go like, well, I guess so, I'll help you because you're going to sing it anyway, so I'll help you. The change becomes, hey, there's a lot in this song that is really challenging for you to sing. And perhaps there's also some other stuff in here that because of your age and stage of development, you're probably not going to sound like or be able to perform in the way that the original person performed it. And let's develop together like a rubric, if you will, or a list, if you will, of all of the things in this song that need to be in place or that we think might need to be in place in order for you to perform it at the level you want to perform it. Not at the level I want you to perform it at, right? Because it's not about whether or not someone else outside tells me that I'm a good teacher, right? What I want is the singer to have agency over their choices. I want the singer to be able to make choices, and I want the singer to be able to decide what they want to do. Yeah. But Shannon, they don't know what they want to do. Yeah, that's because you need to be an educator right now. Your job is to educate them. That's what it means to be an educator. It doesn't mean you tell them what to do, right? It doesn't mean you tell them what their choices are or what they're supposed to do. It means you offer them the choices so they can make the decision. Yes, yes. It feels like the change is to get them doing the thing rather than us being the one who gets them to do it. Yes, yes, yes. Absolutely. Ownership versus agency. Yeah, I love that. Ownership versus agency. Right, yeah. I don't own it, right? It's their choice. But Shannon, they don't know how to make good choices. Of course they don't. That's your job to help them, to empower them, to support them, to learn how to make the choices they want to make. And then you get to sit back, even if they make choices that you think are not good choices. That doesn't matter because they get to make the choices, right? So again, in this situation where we have a singer who wants to sing something, for example, who wants to perform something, we're talking about like a younger singer who wants to perform something that is too hard, right? That is written for an adult singer or whatever. And they are not interested in doing any cuts. They're not interested in changing keys. They're not interested in changing anything about it. They want to sing it the way they want to sing it. Great. And maybe the parent wants it too, right? Great. What do? We come up with a rubric together about what it means to perform this song in the way you want to perform it. So what are all of the things in this song that need to be in place in order for you to perform it in the way you want to perform it? So words, great. You got to know all the words. Great. Maybe all the rhythms. You got to know all the rhythms. Maybe you've got to have like the feel for it. Maybe there's a backbeat in it. Maybe there's a sense, like maybe there's a vibe, a specific kind of vibe. Maybe you got to have that vibe. Maybe there's some runs that are tricky. Maybe there's some that need to be accurate. Not need to be, but that are part of the thing that you might want to have accurate while you're performing. The tune. You need to know the tune. Maybe you want to have it memorized. Maybe you don't. I don't know. If that's something that you want, then we're going to put that into our rubric. Maybe you want to have a certain sensation when you're singing it. Maybe there's some parts where there's like a specific kind of mix required. And so you want to have like a specific spot to have a kind of mix. You can describe whatever the mix is. Maybe you want to have this specific spot where you have a different kind of emotion. So what are the emotions that you're communicating? What are the dynamics that you want to use? All of those things can go on a big grading rubric. You and the singer together, figure it out. All of those things on a big rubric, if you will, or list, whatever you want to do. We co-develop. See how I'm co-developing it? I'm not deciding what the things are that you need to have in place in order for you to perform this well. We are together exploring and discovering what the things are. Yeah? So now we go through and we figure out on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you feel like you're falling on all of these different things that'll go together in order to make this performance the performance you want. So where do you think it is? Like maybe in your capacity to sing this part in tune, maybe you're only at a 2 out of 10. That's fine. You're at a 2 out of 10. Nothing wrong with that, right? Do you see how this also becomes objective then and not me hurting you by telling you that there's something wrong, right? This becomes together. Together, you, the student, and I, the teacher, we're deciding together what these things are. And maybe the student decide that tuning, you couldn't care less. Ouch, that hurts me as the teacher a little bit. Why? Because everything about my lens through which I am considering myself an educator says that if they aren't singing in tune, I didn't do a good job. But what if tuning is not actually important to them? And they decide that in order for them to sing this song, they don't care if they're only at a 2 out of 10 on tuning. Well then, talk to them. That's also part of our education, right? We say, as being an educator, we don't say, oh no, you can't not sing this in tune. That's terrible. Everyone's going to hate it. Everyone's going to think I'm a bad teacher. I'm not going to be doing my job if you don't sing this in tune. I will not have done my job. No, your job is not to tell them what to do. Your job is to support them as they make choices, right? So what does it look like? Here are the options. So you want to sing this. This is a low priority for you, 2 out of 10. Let's talk about what the consequences are of that choice. Like what's the cost of that choice? So if you sing this out of tune in this particular, whatever the circumstances are, or if you don't have the rhythm, or if you haven't memorized it, or if you lose your words, or whatever, like there are so many things that go into being a good performance, if you will, right? The consequence or the cost to you not singing in tune is that the audience, the people who are watching you, are going to, like tuning is one of those things where people know, right? Like people know. Any audience member knows when someone is not singing in tune. So that's one of those big things where people know. And so you say the cost of you not singing this in tune is that people are not going to enjoy the performance. And if you decide that that is a cost you're willing to pay, I'm there with you. I will help you pay that cost. If you decide that you don't care, and that the cost is that people are not going to enjoy it, maybe you won't win the competition, maybe you won't get the solo, maybe you won't blah, blah, blah. Like there's all of those other things that could be costs as well. Maybe the adjudicator will say something hurtful. You know, the adjudicator will say, well, you shouldn't be singing this song because it's way out of your abilities, obviously, right? Like maybe they'll say something like that. Those are all potential costs to you not singing this in tune. Are you willing to pay it or not? If you're not willing to pay it, if you decide that you want your tuning to be like 7 out of 10, or 8 out of 10, how are we going to work on that together? What do you think the first steps are to figure out how to get that tuning back to where you want it to be, right? That's what it means to be an educator. I give you the option, and because I have all of this experience and because I'm an educator, I also show you what the potential consequences are or the costs of your choices are. Yeah, that's how I prepare you, or I support you as you become a human being in the real world. That's how I support you to be the performer you want to be. Look, there are lots of performers out there who do not sing in tune, who we love. Bob Dylan comes to mind. Half the time, I don't know, do we have like, I don't know, maybe 60% of what he sings is not in tune, right? Maybe not even singing by like some standards. He's sort of like a speech singer. Do we love Bob Dylan? Friggin' yeah, we do. Is it my job as a teacher to be like, oh, you're not singing in tune? No, not my job. Absolutely not my job. What is my job? You decide. Taking Bob Dylan, for example. If your communication is 10 out of 10 for you, your tuning is 2 out of 10, and you don't care, I'm not gonna be the guy who says you're a bad singer. It's not my job. As an educator, I'm going to be the guy who says, hey, the potential consequences here are that it's going to be a rough road for you. Yes! Perhaps also the student is not at a point where they're able to prioritize certain elements of the music 100%. But the joy of singing or the poetry is what they are prioritizing. Yes, we're balancing choices. That's the other thing that this offers. As educators, is the other thing that we do is we are able then to not shut someone down for wanting to sing something that is perhaps inappropriate on some level, in some objective standard. Perhaps it is inappropriate, but we don't shut them down because it's inappropriate. What do? We say, hey, here are the costs. You love this song? You love singing this song? Amazing. You want to sing this song? This is the one that you love? You feel amazing when you sing it? Let's break down all of the things and let's just figure out where you are on some of these parameters, right? Let's just figure it out. And then you can make some decisions, knowing that perhaps if you sing that song in a recital, if you do it for a recording, if you sing that way in an exam, if you do this as an audition, some of the consequences may be you have bad feedback. That may be the cost. Are you willing to pay that cost? And you know what? We as teachers need to get over ourselves, right? If they're making choices and your colleagues are like, oh, they are a bad teacher, we need to stop assessing whether or not we are a good or a bad teacher by external factors that we don't have any control over and that make us into teachers who require compliance, make us into helpers. Let's stop doing that. What are some other examples? The examples that I'm giving, by the way, are all examples of like stuff that I've done, but also for like the teachers I've worked with, teachers I am in communication with. So, singer comes in, I have an audition 3 days from now, and I think this song is good enough for the audition. What do? Do we say, no, it's not good enough. You can't sing that at the audition. You have to sing another song or you're not going to get the audition. That's our first instinct, right? Because we know they're not singing it in tune yet. Maybe it's not fully memorized. Maybe they have no like embodiment of the character. It's just like there's so many things not right with this song. What do we say to them instead? So if we're helping them, and if the outcome of that audition is urgent to us, like they're going to go in, they're going to sing, and then they're going to feel like a failure. That's going to somehow be my fault because I didn't prepare them. Or I have to break their heart and tell them something bad about their song choice right now. And that's going to be bad for our relationship, blah, blah, blah. They're going to think I'm mean, whatever, right? Like we're in that helping lens. That's what we go into. If we're in an educating, empowering lens, if we are working with that understanding, what do? We say, what are all of the things that need to be in place in order for this to be a successful audition? In order for you to perform this song successfully in the audition? Let's break it down. Okay. It needs to be memorized. Terrific. On a scale of 1 to 10, how memorized are you? And if they say, well, 7, say, Is that enough for the audition, do you think, or no? You tell me. And if they say yes, you say, okay, how do you know? And also, how can you get to like a 9 for an audition in 2 days? Is there any way we can get to a 9? Maybe the embodiment of the character. How far along on embodiment of character do you think you are in this one? Like, let's just talk about like all of the things that need to be in place, right? And together, we can talk about it together. Like, what are some of the other things that need to be in place in order for this to be a successful audition for you? And then we get some numbers, we get some data, if you will, right? And then we go from there and we say like, hey, friend, if you want to go in 2 days, and maybe you can get some of these numbers up 1 or 2 steps in 2 days, do you think that that is still going to be enough for you to feel successful, whether you're actually successful or not? Is that going to be enough for you to accomplish your goal here? If your goal is to get the role, do you think you're going to be successful? What numbers do you think we need to have here? If they say, yeah, I don't think that is going to be successful, then you say, okay, what other songs do you have that you can do that may not be fit the audition as well as maybe this one does, but that are going to show what you would do in a better light? And so maybe what other songs do we have? Let's talk about one of those songs and let's look at those numbers and just see. So then you get to make a choice, right? Maybe your whole goal is just to do an audition. If that's your whole goal, great. Let's figure out what the numbers need to be at for you to be successful. Because we don't care whether you get the audition or not, right? Like, that's not the actual goal. The goal is to get some experience auditioning. Okay, let's just figure out what the numbers are for you to be successful. And if you feel like some of those numbers aren't as high as they could be, and you feel like you can't get them to like a couple notches higher in 2 days, then let's look at some other songs. So you can still accomplish your goal of auditioning in order to get the auditioning experience. The cost of doing something, just talk about the cost, right? And then they get to make their choices. And then you're in the business of empowering, and you're not in the business of helping. You're out of the helping business. You're out of the compliance business. You are 100% in the agency supporting business and in the empowerment business, which is what education should be. It's what I think educators should be doing, right? I think that's what we should be doing. I think that's what our job description is. Empowering learners, not making them comply to our helpfulness, and then being either frustrated, either just like giving up and resigning ourselves to the fact that they're just not going to listen anyway, or they're just going to do what they want to do anyway, or being the like really intense boundary person, which aren't really boundaries anyway, right? They're kind of rules that you've set up to protect yourself, right? We set up these rules so that we can protect ourselves from like, I mean, we've been hurt. It's all good. I've had experiences where like things have not gone the way that we had hoped they would. And so then we set up some rules. We set up some like intense rules. That's good for now. All right, friends, take good care. Let me know how this one kind of sits with you. I'm interested to hear if or how things change a little bit for you. Take good care. Okay? Okay. Have a great weekend.